Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into something pretty surprising, the genetics of Andorra.
Yeah, this tiny country, high up in the Pyrenees.
Exactly, often just flies under the radar. But scientists are saying its genetic story is, well, unexpectedly significant.
Uh-huh. Some are even calling it a kind of genetic island on a mountaintop, which is quite a description.
It really is. So our mission today for this deep dive is to unpack what makes Andorra's gene pool so unique. We'll guide you through ancient migrations, some really specific adaptations.
And even some modern controversies. Plus, what it all might tell us about human history and maybe even health.
Right. And we should mention where this info is coming from.
Oh, absolutely. It's a real mix. We've got insights from genetic researchers, scientists looking specifically at populations, historians too. They're all piecing together Andorra's story.
So it's a rare look, really.
It really is a deep dive into its secrets.
Okay, so let's set the scene a bit. Andorra. It's been around since, what, the 9th century?
Yeah, a long time. And it's right there in the Pyrenees, a kind of crossroads between France and Spain.
You'd think, being squeezed between those giants and with all that history, Celtic, Iberian, Basque, Roman influences nearby, it would just be a total genetic mixmaster.
That's what you'd assume, yeah, constant blending.
But the really intriguing question is, how did it stay so, I guess, genetically stable, so isolated, despite its location?
Well, that's what it gets fascinating. Scientists found that over 65% of native Andorrans carry these specific Y-DNA haplogroups.
Okay, haplogroups. Remind us quickly.
Think of them like ancestral stamps, genetic markers passed down the male line, tracing back thousands of years.
Got it. So which ones did they find?
R1b and EM81, primarily. And these tell a story. R1b is very common in Western Europe.
Right.
But EM81, that points towards North Africa.
Ah, okay. So influences from Moorish times, maybe? And the Celtic European side, too.
Exactly. It suggests Andorra absorbed genes from both directions, but, and this is the key part, it never fully assimilated into either population.
So they took bits from both, but stayed distinct.
Precisely. It's like it became this biological time capsule. It caught glimpses of these major human migrations.
And then just sort of froze them. Kept that unique blend.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. Froze them in place, genetically speaking.
That's the real aha moment, isn't it? The preservation. So if it's this time capsule, what unique things can it tell us that, say, studying French or Spanish populations can't?
Well, it potentially offers a clearer window. In much of Europe, later migrations and just, centuries of mixing have kind of blurred those ancient genetic lines.
Right, it all gets smoothed out.
Exactly. But Andorra's relative isolation means some of those older layers might still be more distinct. It lets researchers see the interactions of earlier groups with maybe a bit more clarity.
Like seeing the underpainting beneath the final layers.
That's a nice analogy, yeah.
Okay, so they absorb these influences but stayed isolated. What about the place itself? The mountains, that high altitude. What happens when a population lives for centuries way up there, like 1,500 meters? Rugged terrain, less oxygen.
Excellent question. Because that environment definitely leaves a mark. It's all about adaptation.
How so? What did they find?
Well, there was a big European genomic survey in 2022. It found Andorrans have a 28% higher frequency of certain EPAS1 gene variants.
EPS1. Does that ring a bell?
It should. It's famously known as the super athlete gene, or at least variants of it are strongly linked to high-altitude adaptation. We see similar variants at high frequencies in Tibetan highlanders, for instance.
Wow, and Ethiopian mountain communities too, right?
That's right. It helps the body regulate oxygen use more efficiently. Think greater lung capacity, better endurance. Basically, it helps you thrive where the air is thin.
Makes perfect sense for the Pyrenees. Anything else?
Yeah, there's also a higher prevalence of something called the ACTN3R allele.
Which does what?
It's linked to muscle efficiency and performance, particularly in power and sprint activities. You could argue generations of navigating steep terrain, herding, maybe that kind of physical lifestyle favored this gene.
So direct, tangible ways the environment literally shaped their genes over centuries.
Absolutely. It's a clear signature.
Is there a point, though, where that kind of adaptation plateaus? Or are they still subtly changing?
That's a really interesting question for geneticists. I mean, the major adaptations like EPAS1 probably stabilized over many generations. But you still get epigenetic changes happening.
Ah, epigenetics, how genes get switched on or off by the environment.
Exactly. So the environment is always interacting with their genes. Maybe not huge evolutionary leaps anymore, but yes, ongoing adjustments.
Okay, so isolation helped preserve things. Altitude drove adaptation. But was there a downside to that isolation? Any, like, genetic challenges?
Yeah, and here's where it gets maybe a bit controversial, or at least raises some red flags for researchers.
No.
Well, the native Andorran population isn't huge, right? Only around 30,000 people. And historically, they didn't have a ton of immigration.
Okay. Limited gene pool.
Potentially. That leads to concerns about, well, endogamy. Basically, people tending to marry within their small local communities over generations.
And the risk there is.
It can increase the chances of inheriting 2 copies of a rare recessive gene variant. A study out of the University of Barcelona back in 2019 actually looked at this.
What did they find?
They found elevated levels of something called autozygosity in Andorran samples.
Meaning?
Meaning individuals had more identical stretches of DNA inherited from both parents than you'd typically expect. It's a sign of shared ancestry, pointing towards that history of endogamy.
So does that translate to actual health risks?
That's the debate. Some scientists warn it could heighten the risk for certain rare recessive conditions, things like specific types of inherited anemia or maybe congenital hearing loss. It's a potential consequence of reduced genetic diversity.
But there's another side to this argument, right? About the research value.
Absolutely. You have one group saying, okay, let's be cautious about potential health risks. But others argue that this relative genetic homogeneity, this purity, as some might term it, actually provides a really valuable controlled lens.
How? Like a cleaner signal.
Sort of. It allows scientists to study ancient genetic traits or maybe disease predispositions without as much noise from recent mixing with other populations. It's like having a clearer baseline to study certain genetic effects.
So it's this ethical tightrope. Is it responsible science, using this unique population to learn? Or is it, I don't know, bordering on genetic idealism, focusing too much on purity? How do researchers actually handle that?
It's a very active discussion in genetics and bioethics. The key principles are transparency, informed consent, and community engagement.
Making sure the population understands and agrees.
Yes, and ensuring the research aims to benefit or at least not harm the community. It's crucial to avoid stigmatization or treating people like lab rats. The focus has to be respectful understanding, not just data extraction.
Okay, so internal dynamics, isolation.
Yeah.
But then there's this other striking point you mentioned, an unexpected external connection.
Right, the Basque connection. This one is really intriguing.
Because the Basques are known for being genetically distinct, very ancient lineage, mysterious origins.
Exactly. And some studies suggest Andorrans share certain maternal haplogroups passed down the female line with the Basques, specifically markers like U5, B, and J.
And what's significant about those?
They seem to predate the big Indo-European migrations that shaped much of Europe's genetic landscape later on.
Whoa, so this hints at, a shared ancestry from way back. Before the Romans even.
Yeah, that's the theory. Could Andorrans and Basques represent related pockets of a much older pre-Roman population that persisted in the Pyrenees?
That's a huge idea. Is there consensus on it?
Not entirely. Some linguists and anthropologists find the idea plausible, looking at cultural links too, but geneticists are often a bit more cautious. Well, mainly because the languages are so different. Andorrans speak Catalan, a Romance language, albeit a distinct dialect. Basque is famously unrelated to any other known language.
Right, the ultimate linguistic isolate.
Exactly. So that difference makes some hesitate. But the genetic link, especially on the maternal side, is strong enough to keep that ancient connection theory very much alive. It adds another layer of mystery.
What would it mean, though, if that link was definitively proven for understanding how Europe was settled?
Oh, it would be significant. It would really strengthen the idea that these pre-Indo-European groups weren't just completely swallowed up or pushed aside.
But persisted in places like the Pyrenees.
Precisely. Held on to their distinct genetic heritage for millennia. It would speak volumes about the resilience of ancient groups in Europe.
Okay, fascinating historical stuff. But let's shift to the present day.
Yeah.
Why is this tiny nation suddenly drawing global attention now?
Well, a big part of it is longevity and health. Andorra has become this quiet hub for researchers studying aging.
Because they live a long time.
A very long time. Their average life expectancy is one of the highest in the world, around 83.5 years. And they seem to have remarkably low rates of many chronic diseases that plague other developed nations.
Like heart disease.
Dementia.
Exactly. So the big question scientists are asking is, why? Is it just the clean mountain air, the traditional Mediterranean-style diet, maybe lower stress levels?
The simple life.
That's certainly part of it. But researchers are also digging deeper, wondering if their unique genetic makeup might hold clues to healthy aging.
How are they studying that?
They're looking at things like epigenetics, again, how lifestyle and environment interact with Andorran genes over a lifetime. Are there specific genetic factors contributing to their resilience against cardiovascular problems or even Alzheimer's? Studies are underway right now exploring those links.
But whenever you get results like this, long life, low disease, there's always a risk, isn't there, of things getting misinterpreted or even exploited.
Absolutely, and this is a really critical point that comes up in the source material. There's a definite cautionary note.
Well, with headlines about Andorran longevity, some wellness companies have apparently tried to jump on the bandwagon, marketing Andorra as some kind of gene haven.
Oh dear. Selling the secret to long life based on Andorran DNA.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Using this narrative for commercial purposes, and that's drawn sharp criticism from bioethics experts.
Understandably.
They warn against turning unique populations into, commercial case studies. It's ethically fraught territory, reducing people and their complex history down to a marketable genetic profile.
So the science is exciting, but it needs to be handled incredibly responsibly.
Exactly. The focus has to remain on ethical research, respecting the community, and aiming for health insights that could potentially benefit everyone, not just, selling supplements or longevity tourism.
So wrapping this all up, it's quite a story packed into one tiny nation. What does it all mean for you listening? Is the Andorran gene pool this, quiet powerhouse shaped by mountains and history, a story of resilience?
Or is it perhaps just a statistical anomaly? Something interesting, sure, but maybe amplified by our own curiosity and, at times, over-interpretation.
It definitely raises more questions than answers, doesn't it?
It really does. It deepens how we think about migration, adaptation, health, but it also forces us to confront those ethical dimensions of studying unique groups.
It leaves you thinking, should we celebrate these rare genetic pools as treasures? Or should we be more worried about how that information might be misused?
Is Andorra's genetic profile a vital key unlocking secrets of our human past? Or maybe, in some ways, is it a fascinating but ultimately limited scientific side road?
And can these small, unique nations really help unlock global health insights for all of us? Or is there a real risk we just end up reducing complex human beings to their DNA sequences?
Profound questions.
Definitely something to mull over. This tiny country might just hold some of the biggest genetic questions nobody was asking until now.